Good afternoon, listeners, and welcome to another broadcast of the News Behind the News on Mix 94.7 FM. And this is Rav Kintav. And today I'm glad to have the gentleman who is in front of me today, who is none other than Mr. Jose Lake Jr. Welcome to the program and good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Rav, and your listeners, and it's my pleasure to be on your program.
Yeah. So it's great to have you on. Interestingly, I had your daughter on your program before you, so I hope you don't take
Family affairs.
take no offense to that. And that in itself was a great conversation.
Yeah.
But it's I'm really glad to have you on. I've interviewed you several times. We've spoken many times over the years. You have been one of the sources I would contact for information. But it's good to have it documented that years on the line someone could listen or watch this interview and know that there was someone like yourself who particularly committed to writing about St. Martin and you yourself as a champion for St. Martin people. But there may be a couple of folks who don't know who you are, so could you introduce yourself?
Let me make it very simple.
Story.
My name is Joe Lake Jr. I'm my father's first child. I was born in Aruba and then came to St. Martin where I've been living now since my entire life, because this is the place of my family, my ancestors. I'm making a joke with you. I just mentioned earlier that your wife and myself, we are family.
Yeah.
And so if you go back, like I always say, all the traditional St. Martin families are family. Once you have more than 100 years or 200 years here, everybody's your family.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, because there was so few people that lived on the island in those times.
Okay. And one of the things that's interesting that I think I would probably start off with is the fact that, you also spent some time in Aruba. And we know very well that there were many St. Martiners who, for a time, lived in Aruba. There was a St. Martin community there. And could you share any memories that you have of that period?
Well, I will say that my memories of that time is really like a young boy growing up. What interests me, that I always tell people, because here in St. Martin at times, you hear people talk about that there's no unity amongst the St. Martin people. But like people, immigrants throughout the world, when you go into a foreign country, suddenly you realize that you need that unity. And one of the best examples of that unity that I could remember as a boy growing up was an election. They had an election when in those days you will get it, it wasn't like how we have in St. Martin, no. But in the past, the politicians will be able to, if I'm the politician, then I'll pick my people that I think are my most trusted people, and I'll put them 1, 2, 3 on the list. And then based on that list, because it was almost impossible for people to get elected based on their own strength, so they got elected based on the strength of the party. And to show the unity of St. Martin, people of Windward Islands as a whole, there was once an election in which 3 Windward Islands took place, and they scattered them amongst the names. Like, let's say one was number 10, one was number 15, one was number 22. And you wouldn't believe it, I could still remember that effect that it had on me in thinking that they were able still, despite that, to elect all 3. Because they told the people that they were in San Nicolas, everybody from St. Martin in San Nicolas vote for A. And everybody in Randstad vote for B. And everybody in Dakota vote for C. And all 3 got elected. The people did exactly what the politicians called upon them to do. So you saw that when they thought there was no unity, that was unity at its strongest, because they did something that was almost impossible. My father was one of those 3 that got elected in that election. But I just show you that today you hear and say, but St. Martin people are not united. Maybe for some we are not united the way we should, or we could always be better. There could always be room for improvement. But the fact is that once you're home, you act different than when you're out of your land. So that is something that I always remember from in my later experience, because I was young, but I just heard the people talking about how it was such a fantastic achievement. Today I could understand, because today now in St. Martin, in the past we had that also, that the politicians would pick the number 1, 2, and 3 people, and because it was almost impossible if you was lower down on the list to get elected. Today now, you could be anywhere on the list, and
Yeah.
once you could, it's much easier.
And sometimes you've seen people in the middle, at the end of the list, you can get more votes than the party leader.
Yeah, but in the past, that was almost impossible. All that happened, there were exceptions to the rule, but it also happened that people that who had gotten more votes in that old system than even the top leadership that of what the political bosses wanted were not able to get in because they didn't fulfill that requirement. Today now it's much easier. That was one of the changes that they made. You know?
Yeah. So one of the things that I would say we share in common, besides height, is the fact that we're both in media. What's interesting about it is that, if I'm correct, your father was the first St. Martin to launch a newspaper.
Yeah, my father was the first, and he picked July 1st, Emancipation Day, as the day to start his paper. The paper was started on that day, 1959.
Wow.
You know, he came back home. His stories on my father was a very colorful person. He worked in the oil refineries, and then after he always tell me the story about how when he decided to leave, he wanted to go on to study labor relations. And he said he would laugh about it then and say, you know, I was young and I tell him I want to go away to study labor and to come back and organize the workers. Of course, the company is not going to be a friend of yours, you know. And he got accepted to Cornell University. Imagine those days in the 50s, getting accepted to Cornell. He wasn't able to go because they started to put obstacles in his way to make sure that he don't go to come back to be
all that firepower.
Yeah. So he didn't get to go, but he always said, he told them when they succeed, he said, I will not go, but my children and my grandchildren will go to universities. And it was proven like truthful, because I have one nephew is a doctor today, another nephew is a lawyer, another next nephew is a daughter is a doctor. And in the family we have so many people, professionals. You know, so he got his way still. You know,
indeed. That reminds me of that quote from Toussaint Louverture when he was captured by the French, and he said, you know, I'm paraphrasing now, well, you can cut the tree of liberty, but you know the roots are deep, and it will sprout up again.
Garvey says something along the line too. He says, some of my cubs, you capture the lion, but the cubs are running free. Something like along that line.
Yes, indeed. So I would like to touch a bit on your father, because you know the work that he did. You know, usually for anyone who's the first of, whether it's the first mayor, the first black this, the first in the family, you usually have to be the one to break the barriers, that strong resistant force. And we see to the extent where while his newspaper was widespread, you know, it wasn't well favored. And can you share some of the memories that you have of the difficulties your father had to overcome?
The most important difficulty which he had, which most of us have who go into the media, was finance. That was the way they always broke you, because if you couldn't get advertisements, if you couldn't get financial support, then of course the media will never reach the stage that from when he started in 59, I always remember he told me he was challenged. They told him, some of those, his opponents, then that the paper would not last for 3 months. He said, let's come back 3 years, I'm still going to be here. Well, he was there from 59 until he died, which was in 76. After he died in 76, then I took it over, and I took the paper then all the way to this century.
What was the name of it?
His paper was the Women Island Opinion. And when I took it over, I wanted to keep it as close as possible to the original name. So what I did, I called it Women Island Newsday.
Yeah, gotcha.
You know, and the Newsday went on until I wanted to stop Newsday in the year at the beginning of this century because we have done, but I kept holding on because I was hoping for young St. Martin and young men like yourself to come and take over the whole paper business and newspaper business. So I went on until about, I think it was 2006, 2007. And we had the same problems that he had, financial. The financial situation for local journalists was always difficult, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
To put it mildly, it was difficult. It was the financial weapon that was used to keep the local media from growing to the extent that it had to grow. They didn't have the money. And at one time you had like 3 local medias. You had Newsday, you had the New Age, and you had the Star.
Yeah,
3 local
I heard
papers.
that one.
Yeah, but it was also, you could say, people might have said that Newsday those of us at Newsday was always unapologetic that we were for independence, that we were for unity amongst people, that we were pro the freedom fighters in South Africa, in Namibia, and all the places. So that also put us in a very difficult position.
I took a more radical stance.
Yeah, it was one that we felt it was our duty to do that and to do our best in educating our people along that line, which was really the correct one to take,
Yeah, indeed.
And it still is, it's still a cooperation. The battle is still not over. Independence is still not here. And, but we believe that it's going to come because it's just inevitable,
Yeah. And what you mentioned, particularly with the financing difficulties that may come with media, reminds me of an African proverb to the effect that says, a man who tells the truth is chased out of a village 7 times.
Yeah, you could say that, because, like, Newsday slogan, my father's slogan was love and labor conquers all things.
Yes, love and that's a beautiful slogan.
And Newsday slogan became hide nothing from the masses of the people, tell no lies, expose lies where they're told, claim no easy victory.
That's powerful.
Yeah, that was from Amil Cabral.
Okay.
From Guinea-Bissau. That's when we got that slogan from. So you see, always we were on that line. The papers, so the local papers especially, Newsday especially, really was uncompromising in its defense of the workers too, and the people of Somali. We were uncompromising, and we paid the price. We paid the price, but we kept going with it and waiting on your generation to take it over. But now there's a new times, new ways of doing things.
Yeah, new ways of publishing.
And publishing, much more easier. I was telling my daughters the joke about it, and when there was I can remember I applied I think it was in the 80s or the 90s for a FM registration license. At that time, they had no FM registration license no FM registration on the island, none. There were one AM that was PGD2, but there were none. And I applied for the FM registration. And they wrote me back and denied me the license based on the fact that there were too many FM stations. But it was all based on
none is too much.
None was too much for me. But it's all based on if you believe in something, then you have to be prepared to pay the price for it.
Yeah, you gotta have that backbone.
If you don't, then don't either do it or don't do nothing.
Yeah, don't do it at all because and in effect, you would look back and you look at the compromises and you say, well, what can you present to a future generation? Don't have no convictions, don't have no strong moral stance. Yeah. Yeah. So even on that note, because even right now, there's quite an ongoing discussion about the fact that there's one publisher in print right now, and newspaper is so critical to the democracy of a nation, and what especially as a former publisher, What can you say about, the role that the news play, the media, in sustaining the development of a nation?
I think that the media plays a vital role. The Americans used to call it the founding father, the fourth estate,
Yes,
you
the
know,
fourth estate.
because it's so vital. You cannot, there can be no democracy without a free press. There really cannot be none. Because that's the real intermediate between the people and the politicians. Basically, I was telling some youngsters, the politicians, especially in a colony, most of them, then not all, but most, their job is to keep information away from the people. The media job is to bring information to the. So they will always clash. Once the media doing it's what it's supposed to do, then there will be a clash constantly between
Yes.
the media and the politician.
Yeah.
It's truth speaking to power.
Yeah.
So once you understand that, then you realize that, especially in colonial settings, that those media that take a stand against the injustices that are taking place, they're going to pay a price. They're not going to be as strong financially. They're not going to have the coverage. They're not going to have the look or the everything. Is going to be difficult. And it's most of the time then it becomes a one-man or one-woman show with a small little staff dedicated. And then you see after a while that it loses its staff because people move on. At times it becomes so difficult. I used to see when we used to have Newsday, at times people will go looking for a job somewhere and they will not get a job. Then they'll come by us and they say they want to work with us for a while. And by the time they decide to work with us and the word spread that they're working with us, suddenly they get a job.
It means to say they're too good to be by you.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
the newspaper business is a business where you got to be dedicated to it. You have to believe in it. You have to believe in your people. You have to believe, and that will keep you going. But if you're doing it for let's say for financial reasons, and then you are in what you call you're a St. Maarten and you're doing it for financial reasons, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to be successful. Your success comes in doing what is it right and for your people in that sense, because people remember you.
Yeah.
And they remember. I see up to today, I see many of the youngsters that I had that used to sell me, because nowadays the youngsters sold newspapers after they come from school and stuff like that. And I try to build with them that confidence to be young businessmen. I had to run ads that they were the young businessmen. And up to today, they know me and they approach me. And they really, you feel good when you see so many of them have gone on to be successful in different ways. From that little, because you'll talk to them all the time and you will be patient with them and work with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way you contribute in that sense to your young people.
Yeah, definitely. And I love what you mentioned because, with that, I would like to segue into part of the main reason why you're here is to talk about and promote your new book, Kwame, which is also your first novel, because all of your other books have been nonfiction.
Yeah.
And now you got into the fiction realm, touching into Lasana's ground, playing field.
Yeah, it's different. It's not it's different, yes, because when you do factual, when it's factual,
Yeah.
you could go and look for the research and
Correct.
you have the backup on your thing. You say this is what happened and this is what. But when you're doing fiction, it's different in the sense that you're pulling a lot of stuff. At times, you still are also looking for information, or you try to make it as realistic as possible. But while you're doing that, you also take it into consideration that you're pulling certain things out of your mind. And this makes it a combination of the two, make it very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I do everything from a point of view of purpose. This last book, it's fiction, but it's dedicated to the children of St. Maarten. And what I did, I took a scene where, as a child growing up, you knew, as a youngster there, not a child, but a youngster, the system was set up in such a way that often the brightest students in the classroom, because they didn't come from the right family, or there was no, the parents didn't have the money, the influence. We lost some of our best brains.
Yes, that's
And
true.
then you had those that came from the right families went on to become whatever it might be they want, but often the brightest students, and then they become frustrated and they become angry. And looking at the whole society, you see some of them now today in our society, in which they run around as on motorbikes and things. But if you sit down and you talk to them a minute, you realize how intelligent they are, and that they are angry for a reason, because many of them were cheated out of getting the right education, or even, although I'm not a fan of this educational system, let me say that straight out. I think it's not a educational system that promotes intellectual ability, or even on. It's really nothing but rotating and being following like a lamb.
Yeah.
Wants a way of thinking, which is not in our interest.
And it doesn't promote production,
No.
but consumerism rather as well.
Yeah.
Our
It's-
education system is like
yeah.
our children are being I mean, speaking of my recent experiences, we are pushed to be servants of the society, but not the owners and decision makers.
Yeah, we're not the ones of the. I always tell people this story, which I had when I was at Howard University. I had this professor. He was a Guyanese, an Indian professor. And the first day we started the class, before he started class, he said, "I want to talk to you guys." He said, "Listen to this story." He said they had this black man. The black man took his son to the bank. He took him in the elevator to the top floor in the bank. And he told his son, "You see here, your father's at the top floor. Your father's the president of this bank." He said that was a great achievement. And the son and the father was so proud that his father was the president of the bank. He said, and then the white man came with his son. He didn't enter this bank. He just stayed outside and looked at the bank. And then he turned to his son and he said, "You see that bank? Your father is the owner of that bank." And he said, the professor then said, "I'm not here to teach you guys to be workers, I'm not wasting my time for that. I'm here to teach you guys how to be owners, And that's what the whole education is. It teaches us how to be servants and owners, but not owners. That's why many of our young people come back, and the first thing after a while is I have to leave because I can't get a job. Create your own job.
Yeah, and for others.
And for others, So, but because of the school system set you up so to believe that you have to work to get a job instead of you creating jobs for others and yourself. Only when you start to create, then you're really going to be going into what our investors. Investors are people that just come and lend money and decide to try the thing. So when we say at times we want to have investors, we don't realize that we ourselves could be our own investors.
Yeah, that's right.
It don't cross our mind because the educational system.
But even when you hear investors, it's like it's already given a profile.
Yeah.
Middle-aged white American.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you see, those are the things that we have. That's why I'm so strongly against the educational system. I think the education system, we need a complete revolution. Break it up completely and rebuild it. And rebuild it in the interest of your people so that they could not only become successful at home, but be able to take the challenge and go out into the world and use that knowledge to create things in ways that we could, be in a compete and depend on ourselves. Because, like I always said to the younger ones, anytime your interest conflicts with the interest of somebody else, that person will always choose their interest first. And that's what we have to be very much aware of, that the others will always choose their interest. Yeah. So when you hear them say the colonial bosses treat us bad, that's the nature of the beast. Do you expect them to treat you right? Then you're living in La La Land or something. That don't work. They will always act in their interest. And it's up to you to act in your interest. The old saying that English always had permanent interests but no permanent friends.
Yeah.
So as a nation, you have to look at those type of things to ensure your survival.
That's right.
And look at the historical facts. These islands were once populated by indigenous people of these islands. Where have they all gone? They all have disappeared.
Yeah.
Likewise, at times, I fear that we too are facing that danger, because when you push up people in a corner where economically and financially they cannot survive, then if they can't make children, they get zero growth. And without you raising a gun or anything, they just disappear. Zero growth. You're gone. And it's happening. You study the big nations, and you see the Japanese and the Russians are paying their people to make children, and you can't make none because you can't afford it, and your government is not stepping up to the plate to then make sure that you could afford it or help you. Because there are places in the world where the governments pay their people to send their children to school, pay their people to
even
provide them.
in terms of setting up fertility banks and
Yes.
stuff to help women who have difficulty,
Yeah,
or families rather.
So therefore, if you get zero, and like we all know,
You cut off the nation
you
itself.
cut off the nation will die out. In fact, I think certain studies that I think I came across show that for the last 10 or 20 years, we have been experiencing zero growth. What have the immigrants coming in have fooled us, or not fooled us, but given the wrong impression that we are growing. But population-wise, we're not growing because we have zero growth. And that zero growth is being hidden by when people come in from all over. But if you study the situation, you will see that people are most of the time just passing through. The people that come don't stay. They come here on a stepping stone, maybe to the U.S. or where else, and they stay here a year, 5, sometimes 10 years. But the intention is always to move on.
And then go back home.
And go back,
Yeah.
So therefore, when you start to study that, then it's up to you to look at your own population and say, what can we do to ensure that we continue to exist? Because if we disappear, and I say it all the time, if we disappear off this earth, we might make CNN for 1 minute, and then the world going on. So the only people that truly care about us is us.
Yeah.
And if we don't realize that and keep around fooling ourselves, that other people, and that will be such a big betrayal to the future generation if we're going to exist. Because if we continue to decrease in population the way we are, we will definitely cease to exist and go the way of the other indigenous people. You might not realize what is happening, but it is happening. And because you look around, you see, the population is 40,000. We know one earthquake could take out 100,000 people, clean out the whole island. And then what? And it happens in the Caribbean, happens all over the world. So therefore, those that are in leadership position must have a duty bound, otherwise don't get involved in it. Your duty bound to ensure the survival and the progress of your people.
Indeed. So on that note, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the News Behind the News on Mix 94.7 FM. In case you may have missed the first half of the show, I've been having a conversation with Mr. Jose Lake Jr., journalist, author, now a novelist, independence advocate, and we're last discussing the new book that he's released. It's available island-wide now, right?
Yeah, it's available throughout the island.
Okay, and it's titled Kwame.
Kwame. Yeah.
So why Kwame? I mean, for me, the first thing that comes to mind is Kwame Nkrumah.
Yeah, that's the same thing.
Okay.
Kwame Nkrumah is one of my heroes. Kwame and Julius Nyerere. I really admire these people. Padmo, the Caribbean leaders, Padmo, and Sarah James.
Yes.
These are all Caribbean people that I'm very proud of. And, you learn so much from them. So the book, it became to Kwame because, like I said, he's one of my heroes. And then I try to bring in our culture in it because you see his name, he have 3 names. I mean, his name was, he was named after his grandfather, I think, named him Kwame. I write it and now it's going. His grandfather named him Kwame. His grandmother named him after her brother. I can't remember the name right now. And his mother, since he was a child that was born out of what they call a wedlock, he got a Richardson name, which is a traditional, one of the biggest in Maarten family name.
Correct.
So I put the 3 of them together and came up with,
Interesting. And so, can you touch on the themes that's discussed in that you wrote about in this book?
Yeah, I wrote about it.
And sorry, the setting is placed.
The place out at waiting on the results of an exam. And this exam is so important to him because his future really is running on whether he passes or he doesn't passes. And then I go into the sections of his relationship with his mother. And he is an only child relationship, but not just an only child, a child that really loved his mother. I tightly knit. I wanted to bring out the issue that St. Maarten people are very concerned about the education of their children. So you see the tightness between he and his mother, and that also the good relationship, and that since he had he said in the beginning his father was very let us say free-spirited, right? But as time go by, you see the end is the same. But the father always knew that despite what he might have appeared, the father had that deep down love for his son, which every father has or should have, So I brought in that connection, and I keep, like one person told me, it's all a St. Maarten setting. Grand cars, marry God, this, that.
Nice.
Many people like it because they recognize certain things in it that. So I built it around that story based on the thing that, and I wanted to make sure that even though in all these difficulties, there's always hope.
Yes.
That's why in the end, you see how it ended, because you want to, yes, you have to be strong, you have to be this and this, but don't give up. Don't give up at no time, because when you give up, then it's all lost. So I brought that into, and then the mixture of the students, and I was also, I wanted to also bring out this part which you saw with a Chinese boy, that he was also born here, and he was proud to be here. And at times, children I got that too I spoke several times to children in schools. And I picked up that anytime you tell children that they're from here, in the sense that their parents might be from any other way, and they're born here and they're from here, I used to see how the children's face would light up. They would be so happy because it's like every day they're hearing you're not from here, you're not from here. And now here comes somebody who says, no, you're from here. And so I wanted to get rid of that discrimination, especially against children. You can't discriminate against children, and they are from here. They don't know nowhere else. So I wanted to bring that out too. But then I also wanted to bring out the sarcastic thing of some of our people, how vicious we could be, like telling your children keep away from black people because they can't.
Yeah, the realities, some of the realities that we do indeed face.
So I try to be bringing all the realistic aspects of this society.
Nice.
It is, so you see, and then I play a little bit with the mystical also, when you see in the end with the dream that he had, telling you, hold on, that comes in with you, because I was also concerned about the morals, because just being smart but having no morals is your gift. I always tell people, no human being is smarter than the devil. When you come to brain power, he has more brain power than all of us, you know. But he has no morals. You know, that's what makes him the devil.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I also try to play with that idea, with the mystical aspect of all the dreams and those. So I work it around the St. Maarten culture. Not only, you know, the St. Maarten culture, which is also in a great extent Caribbean culture. And you see, I played with because I played with also the different languages. The mother speaking in Portuguese because they were poor, they were taken advantage of. And then his best friend was from Haiti. His father was a Haitian. How he would use the Haitian language to tease the girls at that age and stuff like that. So I play with, like, I mix up the whole thing, but playing with the whole
basically
the
Samaritan
Samaritan
society. Yeah.
And
Nice.
it was, at times I had, you wouldn't believe it, but at times I had mental blocks. I just didn't know how to continue.
Yeah, I can
And especially, and certain other times I had it so that because many people told me they liked the read. It was an easy read, you know, to read the story.
Mm-hmm.
But at times I had some difficulties putting it together, especially one of the aspects with the priests, you know, the sin and the priest and the thing, to put it that it could flow, that the story could flow without people jockeying and jockeying. That gave me a lot of problems.
Yeah, you want to make sure that basically the plot and the narrative flows. Yeah. You don't want people to be like, how this? Yeah.
They don't supposed to say, you know, let me go back over this thing. Yeah. Because, you know, from the minute they get trouble with it, then put it down and they're not going to look at it again.
But I will say, you know, in addition to that, I love the cover. They say don't judge a book by its cover, but even as a writer, I'm a type of guy who, you know, a cover is calming. Yeah. It's calming. Yeah.
And the covers, my son did that.
The design and the size, it's really nice.
Sunjata is a graphic artist. My son, he's the first, and that's his profession.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so he did it. Especially you see the little
stars,
the plane
at
the back of the thing, you know, because it's the whole concept. So I play with all the different go and come. Sometimes I had to put it down for a while because it just was stuck. Like, you know, you write, so you know at times you get stuck in a thing, and the best thing is just to
let it be.
and then you come back sometimes 2 or 3 in the morning, and you get up and you get an idea, you go and you scrabble it down a little bit. And
because the worst thing to do is go sleep, and then you write. It's like nerve-wracking trying to get back that.
Yeah. So otherwise, and that drives you sometimes crazy, you know, when you can't get it the way you do. So I try my best to mix it up. So far, I must admit that I've gotten very good reviews. People seem to like it a lot, you know.
And where is it available, by the way? Where can people get copies?
Van Dorp and the Land of Flags, you know.
And a brochure.
And then
great.
So those are the 2 places that we have. And then somebody you could call to on the phones, 524-760, something like that. You wouldn't believe me that I do this thing and I myself forgets these things. As you know, when you
Let me get your number for you.
when you have written so much all your life, as for one project is finished, it's almost like it disappears out of your mind too. Like your mind clears up and wants to do something else again, you know, that kind of way.
Yeah, I understand. I think I found
524-6700, I think, or 7600.
Okay, one of the numbers I have for you is 524-8600.
It's done, that's it.
Okay, good. But yeah, so one of the things is that it's an easy read. I can't wait to really make time to sit down and go through it. But I love the fact that even the size-wise is almost like a pocketbook.
Yeah, that is the new style that a lot of them are doing now with books. You could just stick it in your pocket, and when you get a chance, you pick it back out.
Yeah.
And it was printed in China.
Nice.
Yeah, we did it in China. I
figured, cost-wise, it was very...
It was cost-wise, it was very attractive to do it. And they did a fantastic job. And they printed it and then they send you a copy. So we got to check it out, the errors. We made change up or whatever. Then we send it back to them, and then they finish it up. And we had a little problem with them. Time it took. But I guess as time go by, we will learn how to get it done quicker and they will learn. But it was done. Most people like the work. It was done. I'm satisfied.
How
with
long
the
did
work.
it take you to write,
To
finish this book, to put it together?
it took me more than a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me more than a year because I started
You
it
really
and I
took
put
your
it
time
down.
with it.
Yeah, it's like the mental blocks too. When
Yeah.
then you have to put it down. You have to put it down. And like every book, which I know you know about, when it's finished, you say, I forgot that thing. Still.
Yeah.
but it's I learned once I was in a class. I can't remember which class, but one of the teachers told me. He said he was talking about making statues, and he said that's why a lot of the great these great designers and things will when they do their work and it's finished, they will just chip a little piece out to make it imperfect so that they could deal with that issue of yes, I did it myself.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I gotcha. So, in addition to that, I mean, this is I would say, your fifth book? Fourth?
it's something like that. Fourth or the fifth,
Yeah.
something like that. I did
Friendly Anger,
for the Friendly Younger.
The Republic.
I did one of my first ones, and this one is Plantations in Maarten. Most people
Yeah.
don't know Plantations in Maarten. I did that when I was in college, and the thing about it was that it was so. The professor was so impressed with some Plantations in Maarten that he used it as a final test for the class.
Wow.
Yeah, I think he was so impressed with it, how I put it together, that the class, one of the questions, criticized plantations in Maarten for the whole classroom. And that to me was one of the greatest honors I could have gotten in academic work for a professor to give the class,
Your work to critique.
to critique my work.
Plantations, I mean, it's a powerful body of work. The collective that you have, but Plantations in particular, I mean, it's interesting how to this day,
Yeah,
everything really still stands.
That still stands.
Yeah.
That was and that one really I really set out to do that because I wanted to show that, like you said, that nothing in many ways have changed. Nothing have changed. The same one economy, the same this, the same that. But so I did I did 6 for 9 because there was
6 for 9 was one of my favorites too.
Was also a lot of talk about it. There's a difference between the North and the South. And I wanted to show there's no difference. The colonial bosses in The Hague or in Paris, they treat you the same. And in 6 for 9, when you go back over a lot of the promises and a lot of the stuff, you see that they basically treat you. Yes, one is assimilation and one is apartheid, but it boils down to the same thing, that both of them treat you as inferior to them.
Class.
And and that will always happen to as long as you're a colony. You're going to stay in that thing, and they're going to treat you like that until you come out of that stuff. So Plantations in Maarten I really set out to do that one. And then the rest, 6 for 9. Friendly Younger was the one that most people consider really my main work.
Yeah, because you basically documented the history of the labor movement in St. Maarten.
Yeah.
That in itself is rich in history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you look at my work, you see it's all based around St. Maarten. Plantations in Maarten. Then
Pen and Paper.
Pen on Paper was
2016, I believe you launched that one. Pen on Paper.
In this century. Yeah, the 26 or 28 or same. Yeah, 16, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
That too, you see, I I used to go around, I still do, and ask a lot of the elders of our island, how was this thing? And they will tell me, the most of the time, they could not give me the information. They will remember, yes, John did that. What did John do? How did it happen? They can't tell, I can't remember. And I realized that this part of our history will disappear if we don't write it.
Yes,
because and it's disappearing every day because if I myself, you ask me things that I can't remember, but it's written.
Yeah.
If it wasn't written, it would be gone.
Yeah.
So I realized, I said, wait, something, our whole history will go down the drain 100 years from now. If we are lucky and they still have these books, which we hope they will have them, that's the only way they're going to know how it was today. Because if nobody writes it, and we all just go on like that, people will create stories, and those who honest will say, but I can't remember. My grandfather told me something. But here you don't need your grandfather no more.
Yeah.
Here you have
and
the
sometimes
stuff.
you just add on what you think happened, and then that becomes the truth.
Yeah. And
But you can't verify because nothing.
Yeah. So that's why all of them had a purpose. Plantation. The Republic of St. Maarten is my idea of how an independent St. Maarten should look. That too came because of the referendum. For the first referendum for the concerning whether we should become independent or not. The first referendum, I had a lot of the arguments put together in the first referendum. But my opponents those who oppose independence will always say, yeah, you're saying all of these things, but put it on paper now, write it. So they will challenge me to write. And then when the referendum was over, I said, they had a point. If I believe in these things, why shouldn't I put it together? So I wrote The Republic of St. Maarten, my ideas of how St. Maarten independence should look, direct democracy, direct this, direct that. And when the second referendum came around, nobody could have told me no more put it on paper.
Yes, it definitely did.
Because it was on in the book form there, which is still there. You see then, if you line them up, you will see the follow-up pattern. Plantation St. Maarten, the Republic of St. Maarten, the Labor Union, one Friendly Younger, 6 for 9, that you could almost use them in the classrooms as.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because even with your new novel, Kwame, this is definitely a book that can be referenced in at a literature class or social studies class.
Yeah.
But your books in general are all books that I honestly wish we had in school, that we're able to have discussions on, debates on, because it's filled with so much history, and you wonder, well, okay, yes, it's nice to also know. It's the Caribbean history, which we learn with CXC, but you rarely learn
anything about
St. Maarten history.
Yeah. That's why I wrote those things, because we have to know our own.
Yes.
We have to know our own history.
Indeed.
Because it's just logical. And you will expect that the political, our educational system, after so many years. And I remember when I was going to school, and at times we will get a book. They will give us a book. And when you look at the book and you look at I remember always, you flip the book to the back and you see the picture of the author. And those authors were never us. And then at last they start giving the impression that only these people could write. That we can't write. Especially, and that was one reason why I wrote Friendly Anger, because I saw the fire, I saw the place burn and stuff like that, and I said to myself, this is a historic moment in our history. Somebody this should be recorded for historical purposes. And then I said, somebody have to reply, and then it hit me, who going to write it? Then it hit me, who going to write it? And then eventually I come to the conclusion, at that specific time in our history, and at that specific moment, I was one of the few on this island, St. Martiners, who would write this, who would take up this challenge then to write this thing.
Yeah.
So that's one reason too why I wrote it, because I kept saying, if we don't write it, somebody else who's not a St. Martin is going to write it. And then when we look at it, we say, but they make a mistake here and they make a mistake. And they're going to look at us in an arrogant way. Since you guys do so much, why didn't you write it?
Yeah. What's the
And I want to deal with that idea that they will tell us, why don't you write it?
Unless the lion tells the tale of the hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, the story will always be told by the hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So all of those books that I did tie into the history of St. Martin.
Mm-hmm.
And if people that, especially 20th second, not pen on paper.
6 for 9?
Died at 6 for 9. The first one.
Plantations.
Plantations. Okay, I could go to the 1800s and then you just click and thing. But all the others is really second half 20th century St. Martin.
Yeah.
Except now Kwame.
Mm-hmm.
Kwame is basically a setting around, what would I say, the 40s, the 50s.
Okay.
You're playing with that thing. Because by the
traditional era.
Yeah. So even that is worked based on the centuries and this stuff. Because if we don't, that's why, like when you write your books, I'm happy because you write it now from a different angle. Yeah. But the more of our people, and that's why I always said it up to yesterday, I was somewhere and I said, there's no more excuse to say we can't have our books in our schools.
True.
Because there are more than 100 books written by different St. Martin authors and writers. Lasana and the House and they have done a fantastic job. And all of these books, plus what you have done, what I have done, what others have done, they could put it together that from the kindergarten all the way to high school or even into the university, that they could have the books. So when you hear them saying now that there's no books in the schools written by St. Martin, that's nothing else than an attempt to sabotage. Mm-hmm. To sabotage the intellectual ability of our people.
Yeah, because you can't see it's not there. The books
they're
are there.
It's up to you. In fact, other countries would have been given House of Nehesi, for instance, yearly assignment. We want 2 new books from you based on whatever
subject. It's true. Yeah. It's very true.
And I also tell the teachers, especially our retired teachers, I tell them all the time, I say, you people have knowledge about how to teach St. Martin children that nobody else have. Because if you taught for 30, 40, 50 years, there are things about those children, those St. Martin children, that only you know. Mm-hmm. And it's your duty, therefore, then, to put it in print. Even write a little pamphlet. These are the new ways these are what I've discovered, how to teach St. Martin children, how to get their attention, how to hold their attention. Because they're different. Every child is different. There's certain things in general, but there are unique things that you only know. Maybe when you see the child, just put his finger on his nose. Or when he closed one eye, it telling you because you taught them and they all come along because the cultures are all the same. Mm-hmm. They have the same cultural warning signs. And a young teacher should not have to wait another 20 years to discover that. If you put it in print, no matter how simple it might look, when that young teacher comes, they could build on that. And that's how, too, you're going to start changing. But instead of sitting back, and so you finish, you retired, and what are you doing now? You just can't wait to die. When you have so much knowledge that they have in your head that you could do something every day a little bit, and you'll be surprised how that kind of teaching method, because you know the children, how much they will learn and how quickly they will learn certain things.
Indeed. Yeah. And this is, what I can say on that is this is a call to write and to document.
Yeah.
Definitely. So I would like to thank you so much, Mr. Lake, for coming on the program. I really enjoyed having you, and I definitely do look forward to you being back on. And
it's my pleasure to be on your program, and I'm expecting big things from you.
Appreciate it.
You saw the little Haitian boy who was number 1, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm very proud of young people like yourself because it's all reaching a level. It's in your hands, you know, and all else it's in you guys' hands, and you guys don't have to realize that nobody could take care of us better than we take care of ourselves, and we can't love other people more than we love ourselves, and they can't love us more than we love ourselves. And our children, especially our younger generation, that coming behind after you, they're depending on you. The mantle is passed into you people's hands, and you have to take the ball now and run with it, and take this nation. As far as I'm concerned, there's only one way for us, and that's independence. If we don't do that, we're just going to disappear. That's how strongly I feel about it. So it's up to you guys now.
Thank you once again, and to our viewers and listeners. I hope that you guys enjoyed and learned a whole lot from this interview. Do take care and see you again next time.